The Rainbow Tower. Written by Alex Tymms. Illustrated by R H Stewart. Episode 42. Outside. Suddenly, Swenson cried out. A sharp sliver of bone had shot up from the surface of the deck, piercing the mass and grazing the man's shoulder. The furious chief executive then had to dart sideways to avoid another needle-sharp protrusion. Screams filled Jed's head. He squinted, trying to see where it was coming from, then realised it wasn't from outside, but inside his head. The feelings were coursing up through his fingers from the bone. The tortured sounds weren't from a person, but from the tower. Another extension of bone shot up, forcing Swenson to jink backwards, accompanied by another anguished scream of agony inside Jed's head. "Take that!" Another bone construct, another wail of despair. "And that!" Swenson only just avoided being impaled as Katie advanced, stabbing the bone beneath her feet with the lance in her hand, injecting the liquid from the backpack to create another fearsome structure. It was this injection that made the tower scream. "I've got you now," she swore at Swenson as she stalked forward, a tiny figure in front of the retreating mass. Another razor-sharp thrust of bone shot towards the chief executive. "That's for my mum and everyone else in red," she yelled at him as a chunk of mass was severed off just where Swenson had been only moments before. Jed writhed in agony. He didn't know how much more he or the building could take. "Not used to people fighting back, are you?" Katie shouted, advancing again. Jed could feel tears burning his cheeks, and his head felt like it would explode. He convulsed again as Katie sent more of the corrupting liquid into the bone and only just stopped himself screaming along with the tower in his head. He could feel it trying to cower, wanting to hide from the pain. "Trust me," he panted. "Trust me." He reached out, trying to feel the building, showing that all he wanted to do was help. "I can make it stop, but you have to trust me. Let me stop it." Katie raised the lance once again as Swenson curled one way then the other, his movements becoming increasingly desperate. "Please, please, it's going to happen again, please." Then Jed was free. The bone holding his arms and legs fell away as dust. He jumped to his feet. Ahead of him, Katie plunged the lance down. Swenson made the mass dance, panic on his face. "Goodbye," Katie began, only to be knocked sideways as Jed launched himself at her. The lance snapped as they both crashed to the deck. Jed tore at the straps of her backpack, trying to wrench it off her. "What are you doing?" she yelled at him, trying to fight him off. "I was winning!" "You can't," he gritted, trying to tear the tank loose. "You can't use that." "Jed!" Katie hit him, and once again Jed crumpled. "I'm beating him! I have him on the run!" She staggered to her feet. "And now I'm going to finish this!" She looked at the broken end of the lance. It still appeared sharp enough to pierce the bone. With grim determination, she thrust her arm down, only to have it deflected as Jed grabbed her. In horror, she looked down to see the lance had not reached the bone, but was instead buried in Jed's thigh. "Stop," he said, as her thumb hovered above the inject button. "That stuff," Jed went on, wincing. It's the remains of people. It comes from the blue room. The bodies of everyone he has killed. Everyone in red. Your mother." Katie stared at him. "What?" "It's true. It's all over the building." Jed looked towards Swenson. "That was his grand plan. Feed the workers to the building. All in the name of efficiency, but it's poison. It corrupts and it kills." Katie looked at him. then at the equipment. Jed saw her take her thumb from the trigger, and he pulled the lance from his leg, trying not to cry out as he did so. No sooner had he done this than Katie tore off the backpack and wrenched the lance from her arm, her face contorted with rage. "I hate you!" she screamed as at last the equipment came loose. "I hate you all!" And with all her might, she threw the lance and backpack over the side of the bridge. "And you knew!" she rounded on Jed. "When we saved this bridge, you knew!" Jed forced himself to look her in the eye, even though he wanted to run away. There was no understanding or forgiveness in her hard gaze. He couldn't bring himself to say anything. Swenson laughed from way above them. Katie, with a glare of disdain, turned away from Jed. He looked at her a while longer, hoping she might glance back at him, but she didn't. "Well, for a while I thought you had what it took," Swenson called down to Jed. "But you haven't." Jed stared up at the man, who was once again riding the mass with confidence. It roiled up beneath the chief executive, rising higher and higher. "And now," Swenson announced, "you are going to die." Thank you very much for listening to The Rainbow Tower. To see more of R H Stewart's excellent artwork, you'll find him on Instagram at roy.hootson.stewart. For Alex Tymms, why not try the novel OutCaste at ao3.com? Or, for something completely different, check out the Amier series on YouTube or at amier.com, also by Alex Tymms. The Rainbow Tower. Text copyright Alex Tymms. Illustrations copyright R H Stewart. The right of Alex Tymms and R H Stewart to be identified as the author and illustrator of this work has been asserted in accordance with the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988.